We're back, new set, new location. We're just gonna try and upgrade it every time. The actual problem with e-commerce in my mind is the barrier to entry is zero, and so all the profits eventually get competed down to nothing.
Some people talk about how hard it is as if it was supposed to be like you walk down and somebody just gives you a bunch of free money.
And so you can get to, and this is just me as a designer.
Desk treadmill.
Doing this in like 6 seconds. Like I can make this ad that there's nothing like this in the account because now will it work or not? I don't know, probably not, but who cares?
If you can take 1,000 shots.
It took 0 seconds to make it.
Right. I'm not making any bets on Polymarket related to e-commerce, but I am starting an e-commerce brand. So I believe in it.
I think that there's just an opportunity to build on some of these really great ideas and keep going with it.
And when he asked that, I thought, I've never thought about that in my whole life. It's worth noting that it's daytime, because usually when we do these, it's like 9 p.m.
Yeah, and our wives are not happy about the fact that it's happening.
That's when we start. We get, you know, one of us is leaving the other one's house or location at 11 p.m. for a 40-minute drive.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like, maybe there's been a beverage poured at some point. Do you have any non-alcoholic beer still?
We might.
Should we do some lunchtime non-alcoholic beer?
So we got something instead. So normally we've been adding like some sort of element of thing we're doing. It's been the beer. You've been bringing that. So
before you tell people about this, do you want to start arguing so that nobody turns it off because they think we're going to open baseball cards?
Well, we're not. Okay, so we're going to argue. We're not going to break. We're going to start with Andrew's just horrendous take that he's tied himself to as like the internet, the e-commerce optimist is his disposition, which is great. I think it's going to be really hopeful for people and lead to endless sadness. But so we'll get there.
This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Omnisend, the top-rated email and SMS marketing platform for online merchants. Let's be real, email marketing isn't flashy, but that's what makes it great. Who needs chaos when you can have steady, reliable results? That's where Omnisend email and SMS comes in. Brands using it make $73 on average for every dollar spent. It's powerful yet intuitive and does the hard work while you kick back. Plus, their 24/7 support ensures no surprises. Check it out and use code CTC20 to get 20% off for your first month with Omnisend. Seriously, make boring work for you.
But so to start though, so many of you, probably lots of you watch breaks on the internet like me, which is you watch people open baseball cards. Is a big part of the internet that I grew up in COVID. And so I figured we'd have a little fun. So Andrew and I have a lot of shared history as it relates to baseball and our fantasy league and our appreciation for prospects.
Which neither of us are in anymore.
Yeah, we both quit.
You
I rage quit because I was mistreated so egregiously by the league mates.
My life got too busy, quit.
Yeah. So Bowman, for those of you who don't know, this is the premier baseball card. And what we're after here, Andrew, is they have a card that is your Bowman First.
Okay.
So if it has first on it, it's that more so than a player's rookie card.
Okay.
Is the most valuable baseball card you can find.
Okay.
So today we're after this set of prospects that includes your guy Zaire Hope over the Dodgers, Walker Jenkins, Charlie Condon, a number of other top 100 prospects, and we are hunting the three autographs
in order
per box.
of the best ones?
It's their number, so like these will be the card number, BP9, BP.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Bowman prospect.
So but Christian Campbell's in here, like he's like already a good major leaguer.
That's right. So some of these guys might already be up, and some of them, like James Wood, it'll be his rookie card, so it won't be his first. So we're not looking for James Wood first, but Charlie Condon will be his first. You'll see the distinction.
And these are the first BP1. Okay.
So we're going to open these as we go. We're not going to talk about it, but Andrew, I have to tell you that if you get one, what you're going to do is you're going to take this sleeve right here. You're going to put the card into the sleeve. And then you're going to load it into the top loader.
Yeah, great.
Okay, and that's going to protect us.
Yes.
So we can turn this into a profitable endeavor. It's about $1,500-ish of cards we're going to open.
Great.
My friend ChatGPT told me my expected value on this is not great. But,
what is it?
It's like a 30% return expected. Or it's like I'm going to accrue back 30% of the value of the $1,500 most likely. Now, who knows? We could get lucky.
Right.
So we'll do this as we go. So don't mind us. We won't make this the point unless we hit something cool. So you can kind of just open it.
I'll at least get the...
And we'll get started here. Okay. But what topic would you like to kick it off with?
Okay. You wrote in our notes for this that my take, and I'm quoting now, that e-commerce is
easier than ever before, better than ever.
Mostly good. Mostly a good business. Now, let's just make an obvious carve out right away. The same one you made when you're on Marketing Operators, which is that there's a subset of people who are like facing a potential death sentence with China tariffs. Like
so we're just going to set that aside?
No, that's not lost on me.
Okay.
And I'm not, but that's not, and it matters. We can talk about that in there too. But But I just want to be clear that if you actually had to pay 130% more in your product cost, that's bad. Right. I'm not an idiot. I understand that. and that even down to a 30% tariff, which has, by the way, happened since your negativity on the Marketing Operators podcast came out, like a week later, exactly what you'd expect. That got to be probably not an extinction event for brands. So now it's really tough still, but probably not an extinction event.
Yeah, probably not, but maybe.
Maybe, certainly. Okay, but anyway, so I have repeatedly said, and again, because punditry is stupid.
Yep.
There needs to be a thing here where you're putting your money where your mouth is, whether it's Polymarket is a way better predictor of things than pundits, right? Because people actually have to put their money where their mouth is.
Okay.
I'm not making any bets on Polymarket related to e-commerce, but I am starting an e-commerce brand. So I believe in it.
Is this breaking news?
No.
Or you've kind of leaked this?
I've said it a few times before.
You haven't said what you're doing yet, right?
No, I can say it.
Oh, you can?
Sure.
Oh, wow. We'll get into that.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a little carrot.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do content showing all kinds of things about it at some point, but I haven't. Yeah, but I can say it. Okay, so anyway, my take is that things are basically good. You called it outlandish. So what is the best way to go forward here?
So okay, let's try and peg you down to a clear position.
Okay,
you're waffling on me. Yeah. There's sort of two different things. There's one thing I've heard you say. I'm just sort of collecting all the firsts. Nothing major.
How do you know the firsts?
So see how it says first right there?
Okay, got it. Yeah, okay, good.
So the chromes are better than these are called paper. So no chrome.
No chrome. Okay.
The best thing we want is like colors or parallels.
So
they don't
chrome.
care.
Yeah, okay, great.
If we hit something cool, we'll show.
Somebody will want. Okay, great.
If we hit something cool, sure.
Right.
So the first thing I've heard you say is that e-commerce is easier than ever before, like as if there's this like collective knowledge that has
this
grown.
Is a core position of mine.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe the most insane.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that e-commerce is easier than before.
Well, so here's the way I put it. What I always say is the little phrase I use all the time is that the collective knowledge, or the accumulated knowledge on the collective intellectual capital balance sheet, DTC, right? The collected intellectual capital on the D2C collective balance sheet is so much higher than it has ever been. The access to information quality and level is now so high that now there's a problem here. There's so much of it, but that because of that, brands now can, for cheap to free, get an incredible amount of knowledge about how to do it in a way that was actually not the case not that long ago, because, and there's a crucial reason for this, because there are so many more big businesses now in the space that have, and this is just a function of time. Like, there are just so many more bigger businesses that have now gone through stages of the journey and reported their learnings. It's like somebody who has explored a new territory. They've gone out ahead and they've said backwards, like, here's how to get there. Here's how to do it. And that literally didn't exist that long ago. And everybody underrates that. It is a big deal.
But I think you're just looking at it wrong. What you're describing is that you are now competing with a much smarter, much more mature industry. So as a new person entering in, the gap is substantially wider than when you started.
But do you think, what do you mean competing with? Specifically, what do you mean by competing? Yeah,
somebody entering into your product category is now competing with you.
Okay.
Today versus Andrew 10 years ago.
Yes.
Are you a harder competitor or an easier competitor than you were 10 years ago?
Well, it depends, because almost nobody...
You're dumber? You've gotten dumber?
No. Well, almost nobody's actually competing with me, right?
I'm saying if someone wanted to go into the category that you're in...
Yes.
Are they competing with a better or worse version of you?
I think in most cases, this is not true in every brand, that like the notion of even being competitive at the size of businesses we're talking about here.
Oh, see, this is another thing that is wildly...
is basically silly. And what I mean is Apple and Samsung have to compete with each other for how many phones they sell, because like you and I only have one phone, and they're the two of the monsters, right? Whatever. Yep. Or Apple and Android, okay, whatever it is. So something like that. There's like real competitive dynamics there, but for like a brand that's coming in and taking even a $20 or $30 million revenue business in these larger categories, like let's take athletic wear, athletic apparel, right?
Great example.
Something like this, right?
Yep.
Those businesses, like if I'm Nike and if I'm Under Armour, then I'm probably thinking about the collective problem of a bunch of upstart mid 8-figure e-commerce businesses and the way they're chipping away at my business. But if I'm born primitive, I barely care because
it's completely untrue. When Born Primitive started, they had a massive advantage. What was it?
Oh, well, I don't know, but when they started,
you were the one who discovered it.
CrossFit?
The organic search term for the sports bra.
Oh, yes.
CrossFit sports bra.
Yeah.
That's gone. It's been completely competed away.
You mean when they were a $2 million business?
That's right. And it's been completely competed away.
Who cares?
Take categorical search as a category.
So this is a perfect example. You say this is a big advantage. They are 20 times the size of that business now.
No, it was an advantage then that someone entering the category today could never get.
Yeah.
So that category.
Okay, this is good.
All these pieces of digital real estate. Like imagine trying to come in and be a silicone wedding ring right now.
Yes.
All these categories get competed down to nothing.
Yes.
Where the access point to profitability that was leveraged by people when the industry started is gone.
Yes.
And it's not, the idea that you're competing for total market in D2C is not what we're competing for. We're competing for very limited digital real estate. Very limited. Like the SERP results page for women's leggings is no longer a profitable arena for anyone.
The search term.
The search term. But women's leggings.
The idea that categorical search has basically become uninteresting.
It's a channel.
Fine.
It's a channel that is now far less profitable than it was 10 years ago. Same thing in many ways with Meta generally.
I think that's just false.
Meta is wildly more competitive and the ROAS expectation over time for a decade is decreased.
The ROAS expectation?
Yeah, the median ROAS of a brand on the platform doesn't go up over time. It goes down. It gets compressed.
Yes, but that's because brands figure out how to, like they're spending into that based off of the rest of the economics of their business.
That's not always the case. Most people run on lowest cost, like in reality.
Yeah, but I know, but they're still spending, I mean, not in the sense of like being a manual bid, but they're spending in a way that is spending towards the growth level that they can achieve or that they want to achieve, and they're therefore whether they're doing it in a poor way with auto bidding, right, where they're like
but if that volume was where that curve exists, like is different, and if the curve is lower than it was when we started, then you're able to get less volume at lower efficiency.
Okay, so then here's like my fundamental question and response. You just said less volume at more efficiency.
No, at less efficiency.
Or excuse me, less efficiency. So here's my big question to all of the e-commerce is on fire people. Okay, again. Put aside.
It's not. So don't change the. Is it easier now than before? That's the question. Not is it on fire?
Okay. So here's my question. Well, okay. So
we're starting at one point. We'll move to is the state of the industry a disaster right now?
But is the state of the industry a disaster is basically how everybody frames it.
But I'm not me. I'm interrogating a specific point that I brought up in the beginning, which is it easier now than before?
I might not disagree with your point here a little bit. So we should add another
the first one and move to the second.
Well, we should add another poll. So. But the question is, like, when I think about the idea of something like Meta as a channel, okay, it seems to me that the tool itself has been built now to make life easier for almost everybody. Now, yeah, you may have to know how to do it. And I actually think this is the thing that's the hardest part of this whole thing is actually, you brought this up on your marketing operators thing too, which I was just listening to on the way here, so it's fresh in my mind. But just, it sort of fits one of your classic positions that's definitely right, by the way. And you know, it pains me to say that sometimes. But no, one of your positions that's definitely right, which is that like the attribution wars, all they do is complicate things. Yeah. They don't actually bring clarity at all. Right. The whole promise of attribution is
it's clarity. All gotten more complicated and less clear.
And you know, the marketing operators guys are talking about this idea of like, oh, now you can optimize for North Beam attribution in Google Analytics, and what has happened? Cody Plofker's on there throwing his hands up saying, "It just I don't know what to do."
Well, exactly. I go back to when you and I started Meta. We didn't know anything about any of that, and we were more successful.
That's not true.
On running Facebook ads for Kalo silicone wedding rings, our performance.
But Kalo, that's not. Well, yeah, okay.
So my point is like the simplicity of the system was beautiful. It was the ability to set up, you're going to run for sales. Oh, okay, that cool. I don't even remember what optimization setting. I think it was 28 day one.
Yeah.
Right? It was like the default. And we never thought about it. Yeah. We never debated which optimization setting to use or what attribution model to use. Just put the money in and went like, this is good. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe we think we underplayed it and would have made a better, smarter decision. Maybe, I don't know. But
it was also at so much less scale than people are spending now. And Kalo was an extreme outlier for the time. So like, I mean, this is actually the point that I was going to make earlier. Why are there so many more bigger businesses now than there were before?
I think there's just older businesses.
That is part of it. But there are also more stories of people in the last few years like getting to a much faster state than before.
I don't know. I don't know how to validate that claim.
Well, okay, so this is actually another point that nobody knows how to validate the counterclaim to mine, right? Which is like,
so I will just like concede an unknown to, are there businesses growing faster today than ever before? I don't know for sure, but I think that the question is it easier to win in e-commerce today?
What do you mean by win?
Before?
This is, I think, another important part of the question. So when I say
I think the goal of business
win,
is enterprise value. I feel very clear that the goal of business is shareholder value creation.
Okay, but how much? At how much do you win? Because this is another thing that I think I see very differently than most people. Because one of the things that I see in this conversation a lot is people with pretty big businesses putting up pretty big bottom lines talking about how hard it is. And I'm like, yeah, but like a few years ago, that wasn't possible. And yeah, your growth rate slowed down, but that's what happens when your business gets bigger. Like there's just like a thing where it's like, or people who, even like you guys have how many clients at CTC?
100.
Right. And so it's just, I look at that and go like, well, you guys have now figured out how to win for 100 clients. I'm sure you're not winning for all of them. Yeah. I'm sure you're not winning for all of them. But I'm also sure you stand behind the quality of your service and that like brands that do your thing you say and all that, especially compared to when you had 100 businesses before a few years ago. Yeah. Right. And so like all of these people are saying it's so bad all the time, except that the businesses are getting bigger and they're generating a lot of profit. And yes, it is
generating a lot of profit. The median EBITDA for an 8-figure business is about 6%.
Okay, for an 8-figure business, the median EBITDA is 6%. What if they shrunk a little and took it to 10%?
That they'd be worse off. They wouldn't even be able to grow because they would produce so little cash that they would not be able to invest in future growth.
If they took more margin
on a lower revenue.
Yeah. Oh, because they're already at that revenue stage.
You'd have to grow in excess of whatever the delta change is, right? So the net cash result, we'd have to actually do the math on what you're suggesting. But
you're saying because they'd be pushing out their current inventory further, and then they would have to.
We don't know the inventory on hand. But the idea is that like in order to fund future growth, you have to have a cash value in excess of the inventory that you want to purchase, which is more inventory than you sold.
But don't you have more cash if you take a higher profit?
It depends on how much revenue you gave up in the process.
Right? Over
5% at $1 million is the same as 10% at $500,000, right? So like whatever the ratio change is going to determine the net cash result. And likely,
but at a lower margin percentage-wise, then your COGS are going to take up a higher percentage of your cash.
It depends on whether it's coming from COGS, marketing, OpEx.
Yeah. Well, when I'm thinking, Well, I mean, if you think about it as an inventory cost, though, it would be like that if that's the constraint that you're talking about.
Well, it depends on what's causing the cash limitation. Why your EBITDA is so low? Is it because marketing's inefficient, or is it because your OpEx is too high, or because your inventory is too expensive?
I think the string most people would pull would be to grow less, to take up basically a higher ROAS, right? Essentially, that's what not always, but that's what people try to do.
Yeah, and they hope that they can, but in reality, like I don't know how true that is.
I have businesses doing it right now.
Doing what?
Taking a lower spend at a higher AMER and a bunch more short-term CM, basically. There's a question about whether or not that's going to hurt them in the long run for the growth of returning customers and all that stuff. But part of it is it's just the Taylor Holiday playbook, just like first profitability.
If you've listened to any of my content lately, what I'm realizing is that in many ways, the fundamental truth is you can't cut your way to growth. At some point, you have to regenerate.
What do you mean by growth?
Growth to the shareholder, the enterprise value of the company.
Yes.
Because enterprise value is one of the things I think people miss is that acquirer of your company or somebody who's going to apply value, it's a discount to future earnings.
Yes. Yeah.
So the trend of those earnings matter.
Yes.
And if you've grown the bottom line by decreasing the top line, nobody looks out into the future and goes, this business is going to grow profit.
You have to, you would have to do that as stage one, and then stage two.
You have to verify stage two. Exactly.
Yeah, stage two is that we can keep growing at a slower pace, but more profitable.
That's right. And so that is the stage. I think that's a good way to describe what I experience right now, which is stage one was right size the economics of this business to viability.
Yes.
Stop burning cash.
Yes.
But the stage two is the actual problem to be solved, which is now, given the fact that you've right-sized this, can you grow profitably?
Yeah.
At all.
I don't know if I can listen to you and do this game, by the way. It's really hard.
Well, you're just looking for colorful Chrome cards that say first of somebody that you might have heard of before.
Okay, great.
You know?
That's it. That's the
and when you find the autos.
Something signed.
And then, when you find the autos.
Okay, great. Okay.
So because what I find right now is brands are stuck on stage two.
Which is they have cut back, but now they can't grow.
Yeah, and because when they go to market, what they find is that there never actually was viable growth here. Meaning the economics between the CAC, the gross margin, and what it takes to operate the business turns out the category got too competitive, whatever it might happen, there's now, you can't actually go achieve the profitable acquisition at all. Like, it's just not there.
Yeah.
And so now what do you do?
Yeah.
Because you had deluded yourself into thinking there was a business here because you were willing to pay the market price to acquire customers, even though it wasn't profitable, and you were funding that in some mechanism.
Yeah, right.
And so then you're like, oh, I'll just cut back. But then what you realize is like, oh, there's not actually a clearing price where I make money.
So brands try, you're saying let me understand. Brands try to cut back.
Yep.
But then when they cut back,
the ROAS doesn't just like move in this perfect linear way where
they lose too much volume.
That's right. Or there's like literally they can't go get a 2.2 on Meta.
So let's just, for simplicity, they set a manual bid, 2.2.
Yes.
Manual bid's working completely perfectly tuned. It gives you 100% the output that you
and there's zero volume.
And so they, off of what? So they were at a 1.8 before?
They were losing money. Like, let's just say that they were acquiring customers negatively.
Yeah. How negatively?
Volume. I don't know. Like first order negative, they were at a 180-day payback period and whatever. And so now they're like, I have to get to first order profitable.
So let's come up with a theoretical situation. And let me tell you, this is something
I'll give you a specific example without using a brand name.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Imagine a category that exploded during COVID. Okay. A bunch of demand, hot new thing, a trend maybe.
Show me the list of players.
A trend in fitness, wellness, maybe.
Sure.
Okay. Explodes during COVID. For a period, you're able to go acquire a bunch of customers profitably.
Yes.
Maybe you were first to market with this new thing.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden there's 974 competitors. Okay. There are alternative options that are now undercutting you in the market. The categorical search is dissipated, your conversion rate's declining, there's Amazon options that are way cheaper, and all of a sudden...
This is not too far off of Kalo,
right.
by the way.
Well, exactly. I think this is exactly what happened to Kalo in many ways. It happens in almost every category in e-commerce. This is one of the things, is that the actual problem with e-commerce in my mind is the barrier to entry is zero, and so all the profits eventually get competed down to nothing. This,
by the way, is the best counter-argument to my position. Is actually the barrier to entry is so low. This is what Dave Rico...
This is why, like, on the other day I was listening to Maytab on finance operators, and he was talking about IP. And it was interesting because it was like, Drew was like, IP, nobody cares about IP. And like generally default, that's what I was kind of taught. That's kind of the position. But he's like, no, we actually think it's only the only thing that's defensible. And I think he's right. And he lauded Sean Frank for taking so much effort to defend their patents on the wallet. And that's one of the reasons they've been able to kill all the knockoffs and competitors.
Do you sell stuff online? If you're listening to this podcast, the answer is probably yes. And if so, you need Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend. The powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. The one that's so good, it's almost boring. Do you like watching steady lines go up and up and up? If so, just automate your email and SMS campaigns with Omnisend. Set it up once, then sit back and watch the sales roll in while you snooze. Oh, are you still awake? Then give Omnisend a try and start getting sales so steady they'll definitely put you to sleep. Just go to www.omnisend.com or click the first link in the show notes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that they had that.
And so that's actually part of what defends your ability to continue to acquire customers, is that you don't get undercut by all of the people doing Rhino Ring and whatever else Ring, right?
Right.
And so what I see happens is that, okay, so now all of a sudden all that competition comes in.
How big of a business do you think Sean and Ridge could have if they didn't have that?
I don't think it would exist.
You think it would be dead?
I think it would be competed down to nothing. They would not be able to acquire customers profitably.
Yeah. What if they kept adding products along the way? What if they kept doing product development?
I think the question is, would they ever have been efficient enough to fund that kind of development?
Right. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to know the counterfactual. But the problem is the pace of knockoffs. Like now, silicone rings are obviously the most extreme example because the barrier is literally nothing, and the cost is literally nothing. So like it is, if you were going to knock something off at the lowest risk possible with the most margin to go capture. Oh, you got an autograph.
Oh, there it is.
Who do we get?
Jesus Tilero. Dodgers prospect. I'm a big Dodgers fan.
There you go. First auto. Let's see.
I have absolutely no idea who he is.
Which okay, out of $4.99, Chrome auto.
Can't be a good sign.
Can't be a good sign. If he's a Dodgers prospect,
if I don't know who he is, it's not.
Let's do a quick read.
I think probably.
Let's look him up. let's check out some numbers.
I think it's probably not somebody we care about here. Finish your thought. This is going to be the worst episode we've ever done. This is a clever idea, but people are going to be so mad that you're finishing that thought.
They're going to like it because they want to know about Jesus Tolera. He's 19 years old. He's the 27th ranked prospect in the organization, a 45 fastball, but 60 ceiling.
Okay, hold on to that. That's good.
That could be good.
Yeah.
He pitched in the something league. He's 12.5 Ks per 9.
In the DSL?
He's walking 8 per 9, though. Got to go get that. That's a classic Dominican 19-year-old.
Somebody get that guy to drive lines intended zones tracker.
Exactly. Right. Okay, so going back to my example in the fitness category. Okay, so now all of a sudden that's degrade. Your OpEx got a little too bloated because maybe you hired thinking you were going to get all this growth. It starts stalling. You reset your OpEx and you go, okay, all right, now all of a sudden we need to go from a 1.8 ROAS where we were scaling to a 2.6. And all of a sudden you go to try and get a 2.6 and there's no volume.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, okay, we got to cut OpEx further.
Yeah.
And now we can get to a 2.5 and there's like a little bit of volume.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden at that level, it's like the business would have to be a quarter of the size.
Yeah. I mean, so in that business, it sounds like a business that has basically like there's very little LTV on it.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think a business with bad fundamentals that was sort of like took off during a trend and had very little LTV is not a good business.
So this is how it all ends up in supplements and beauty. Like
because the environment.
The question is the fundamentals, like how many products actually possess good fundamentals? And it's like basically none.
I think part of the thing that I consider in all of this is that you ought to have, and this is like you ought to have a position about what is the upside of your business that's rooted in reality, and that means understanding some basic things about that make e-commerce work as a business model.
Yes.
And now one of the things I'll say is, to the point about the intellectual capital and the shared balance sheet, is that we have never been clearer about that. People were not very clear about that not that long ago.
But are we do we know?
So there are exceptions to the basic rules here, and sometimes they're like really thoughtful and careful exceptions. The one I always think of is Simple Modern, where like they have terrible gross margins, but that was actually a channel strategy that launched them, which is about their ability to win on Amazon with one of the smarter business strategies I could think of for a brand.
And like a massive tailwind that happened off of a random event with Stanley that produced massive category expansion.
They were doing great.
They were, but that
they
was
were like 9 figures before that. I think So
it's not the only thing for sure.
I just mean like they break the rules about gross margin being important, and specifically.
But what have they done? What is their next thing that they've gone to do to explore growth?
I mean, they've gone omnichannel.
Well, no, they launched a new product that is a consumable, right? That's
a fully separate brand.
Yeah, but the growth path for the enterprise, whatever the holdco is that they look at, they look at the growth potential of Simple Modern and Trevi and go, Trevi can be 5 times the size of this.
Yeah.
And so the future growth is going to come out of this thing. Not even, I'd say less D2C, more so retail. Like you could sell those things into every grocery store in the universe.
Maybe,
so like I think that there's like, and the unit economics from a D2C's perspective are substantial.
That's right. So you can, because they have the D2C skill set, they understand the unit economics of it, they understand how that game is played.
Right, and so there was a flight to consumable. It was like one of the 3 subsets of product categories.
I mean, they sent one of their talented executives to go do skunk works. That's the way I would look at it and say, like, there's enough upside here on this.
How much cash? 10 million cash? 5 million cash?
I have no idea.
I think I've heard them say it before.
Yeah. They might have said it somewhere. I just don't know it. And look, they're at a spot where they can afford to do that. I think that's smart. If what you're saying as a counterexample is really, really smart operators decided to start an e-commerce brand, I am happy to say that.
I don't think they would call it an e-commerce brand.
I mean, had an e-commerce launch. So I don't know, this is the Kelsey Larrick conversation, but e-commerce sales channel to start. They definitely thought they could incubate it there. And they also have all of these doors into retail and all that. I think that's an argument in favor of the idea that there is a really good opportunity for some people if you can find the right product category fit, something like that for sure. And I don't think I also want to say, like, when I say that it's like the easiest it's ever been, I don't mean that it's easy. Like, and this is another thing I think that happens here. Some people talk about how hard it is as if it was supposed to be like you walk down and somebody just gives you a bunch of free money.
That's annoying. I got a redemption auto. So that means that he hasn't actually had time to sign it yet. Malcolm Moore of the Texas Rangers.
Probably not worth it.
It's a Chrome Prospects Auto. I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. All right.
Anyway,
what's it supposed to be? Like, what is it supposed to be?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think sometimes people talk about this as if the game is supposed to be like, well, what in the world? Like, I just put my money into Meta and I have a business. You know, like, it's not. I don't think it's that, and I don't want to suggest the idea that it is that. You know, that it's, and I think that is sometimes how people frame it. Or they've grown really fast to $20 million at a 10% bottom line or 15% bottom line or whatever it is. Like, they have a good, healthy business putting off millions of dollars in the bottom line. They probably don't have any cash, but like, you know, but they have a good business, right? Like, you all right over there, Mickey? Great. Did we break anything? Yeah, good.
Devices.
Yeah, I know. The 2-camera setup is leading to some injuries here.
Yeah.
Now, okay. I don't mean that. But this is another thing that bugs me about the conversation is sometimes when I hear people with big, healthy businesses talking about how hard it is, I'm like, get out of here. Like,
so what do you think? They're being protectionist? Like, what do you think the incentive is there?
No, I think that.
Don't you think it's sort of like, have you ever seen the interview of Jackson Wong from NVIDIA being asked, like, we talked about this last time, I think.
Yeah.
And he said, I
wish you suffering.
Yeah. No. Where he's asked, like, if you could go back and give yourself advice when you're starting, he goes, yeah, don't do it. That would have been the advice.
Yeah.
So it sort of feels like that to me, which is that, like, the reward relative to the journey
excuse me,
is not paying off in the way that I wanted, or there may have been a different path.
I mean, I just think that, though, for those brands, also part of it is that just success is never enough. And I just think for some people, there's such an endless desire for growth. Now, this may have perfectly reasonable business aspirations. I cast no aspersions on somebody having ambition to grow a big business or something like that, right? Like, it's just that what I ask sometimes is what is actually underneath motivating that, and at what point have you been successful enough to say, this is a good business and it's going well?
But that's different than, is it easy?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I've ever said that it's easy. If I said it's easy,
easier. That's the original point here.
Yeah, and I don't. Again, what I'm saying is I'm bullish on the ability to do it, and and so I don't know if that's. I don't know. As easy is probably not the word I would choose.
All right, so maybe let's move it to a different.
Let's move to yours, which is
the present market is a terrible market.
Well, yeah. So I mean, but maybe the way I would put it is like, do you think e-commerce is a bad business? You know,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
I get asked all the time, would you start an e-commerce business?
Yeah.
And there is almost no scenario.
Why not? What are the main reasons for why not?
Because I think that the path to liquidity and cash return on my time is really poor.
Really bad. Yeah. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, keep going.
Like I look at your business as an example. And how much money how much money you've made over the last 2 years, and how long it would take you to make that much money
in cash. Certainly. Yeah.
And I just go, like, these things are not even close to the same. And I think I have an appreciation for the asset value as well, that I don't actually think the trade-off that people pretend it is real either.
Yeah. Does this matter?
No.
Okay.
So I just look at that. That's just one example. Now I'm not one of these people that's like, you should start a dry cleaners. I know nothing about those businesses to assert that it's better or worse. But I know that I didn't end up in e-commerce out of some thoughtful consideration.
Yeah, right.
That's not how I ended up here.
No, me neither.
And it's not my experience of how many people end up here.
No. I do agree with that a lot of people are not considering opportunity selection at all. I have some friends who I just heard about recently who like very quickly spun up a 7-figure business distributing Ozempic to people locally, and it's just like they're just like making more money than that, you know. Right.
That feels like opportunity selection, right? Like you're trend riding a wave that you thoughtfully entered into potential.
Yeah.
So I do think that is where.
But I just think about how much easier it was for them to get that much money than it has been for me. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm just saying, like, oh, so maybe if I thought differently about what I put my mind on.
That's right. Yeah. I think when I think about easy or hard, I think about that is that, like, if you were to sort of agnostic to industry, take a step back and go, okay, relative to my intellectual capacity, if I wanted to maximize my earning potential.
This is a decent one.
Ooh, you like him?
Otto Hyun-Suk Jang. He is a Korean. He was like a 17-year-old that the Dodgers signed out of Korea with like really big stuff. There's a chance he's nothing, but there's a chance he's a superstar, and that's an auto.
So these are like Dodger autos.
Yeah, I know. That's funny. That's convenient.
Here, man.
He's like a really fascinating prospect, actually.
We're gonna give you this
because he skipped the KBO, he skipped the Korean League, and it was like.
So how old is he now?
I mean, he's like 18 or something like that. He's like really young, or 19. That's cool. Like, I think. I don't know exactly, but yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah. I think people are going to hate this so much.
No, they're not. It's so fun.
Are you having fun, Nikki? Great.
Okay, so that I think, and then so I guess
okay,
my question is, like, when you interact,
the path to generating a bunch of cash.
Well, yeah, maybe let's
difficult.
just talk about the data, like what data we have available to us about the performance of our industry.
Yeah.
If we start at the top in the public sector,
Okay.
It's like the worst basket of performing assets ever
in history. Yeah.
So now, of course, there's HIMSS. It's an outlier. It's crushing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you've got some HIMSS shares.
I don't. I have no HIMSS shares.
So it's not that there are zero windows, but I look at that and I go like, ooh, man, like you want to talk about a category with unique dynamics relative to the rest of our industry that we're lumping into D2C in a very generous way.
Right.
This is like telehealth. You know, this is. And it fits closest to the thing we know kind of works, which is supplements. Yeah. But so at the public level, absolute bloodbath disaster.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I'll say about that is that those are all brands where nearly all of them where like blitz your way to IPO, never be profitable, and generate a bunch of enterprise value for the investors. As we've talked about, great move by those people, like building these businesses that never have a chance to be profitable. They are Allbirds of the world or whatever it is, right? They just don't stand a chance. And that I think of as a carryover from D2C 1.0 or 2.0 or whatever, where it was just almost nobody is operating under those assumptions anymore that I can see. Now, I wish we were. Maybe so.
Then it would be easier.
Yes, but that maybe. I mean, not very many brands won there, right? Like, there was how many of them that actually?
Well, how many of them have IPO'd since?
Yeah, like none.
Okay,
right?
I mean,
but the. So yeah, there was some ability for some brands to do that at the time. Good for them. They did well. Now, when I talked to Fan definitely suggests...
Right, so now we're going to move down market.
Well, no, he suggests to me there's still a lot of brands operating under those assumptions. That's another good pushback on my position, which is like, that knowledge has not disseminated as far as I think of it. Like, I am in particular circles, you know? Like, I talk with my clients and with you, and that's it, you know? And so, like, I don't even really listen to any D2C podcasts normally, you know? So, like, I don't really know what everybody else is thinking out there. So anyway, keep going, sorry.
Okay, so at the biggest level, disaster. If we go down,
is he a thing?
Who is it?
Josue Briseño? I think he's a thing.
Sounds like a thing.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So you go down to the next level and you go, all right, well, let's do the 8 and 9 figure crowd. Well, the only data that I have in real aggregate is what Final Loop has pulled across 500 8-figure stores.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you look at that.
So first of all, it's a lot more 8-figure stores than there used to be.
Yeah, sure. Again, that's just time. Like there'll be more in 10 years.
Yeah, partly, and there's also a lot more customers buying online. Everybody underrates that too. Yeah. More than twice as many. Yes.
Because the growth rate is like what, 15%?
It's basically
so it's 1% point. Double every 5 years.
It's basically 1 percentage point per year, but that's also a pie that's getting bigger. Don't forget.
What do you mean? So the GDP of retail is growing?
I mean, just that like the total economy grows at some point. You know? So yeah.
Maybe we're actually.
I know. It's possible that we're in a recession for a couple months. But it's not going to be
Kyle DeBarge.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know who that is. Well, I mean, that's technically a fourth auto. I guess we get 6. Okay. So yeah,
great.
We're not.
Great.
So you've got this 8-figure set of stores that basically have a median outcome. Okay, so median, for the record, is the middle.
Yes.
That means half the people are worse and half the people are better.
Yeah.
Okay, at that 6% in Q1. They just pulled me the most recent data. 6% EBITDA.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So 6% EBITDA as a median outcome for an 8-figure store. This isn't 7-figure. 7-figure is going to be worse.
Yes.
So once you get to 10 million, the great hope is that if you're a middle of the road, 8-figure, you're making $600,000 on 10 million.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's not great.
No. Okay, so what would you do if you were making $600,000 on 10 million, knowing only those two things about the business, the top and the bottom line?
You would be able to pay yourself $0.
I mean, so what would you do if you ran that business? What do you think you would try and do with it?
I mean, it's too generic of a question. I would try and get out of the business, first of all.
Okay, so that's a fair answer, right?
It depends on so many things, right? Yeah. But operating a business that has substantially more margin than that.
Yeah.
That's a grind.
Yes.
That is a grind for pennies.
Yes.
I think there are better vehicles than that to spend your life in, unless you really,
well, that's not really the
love
question, which is like, the question is like e-commerce relative to e-commerce. Like, is it better now than it was before?
But I thought we were moving on to, is the industry a disaster right now?
Oh, sure, we can do that. Okay, yeah, great, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair, fair point. Do you think that a brand, though, but let's say you were running it, what do you think the viability is? Do you think it's just not viable for that brand to grow slower and more profitably? I mean, we talked about this a second ago, but this is something I always think about this. Is sometimes when I hear, I mean, Fan had a story when I interviewed him about this that was kind of kicked off some of this conversation about like a $40 million brand that sold for 6 figures or something like that because they were not profitable. And I
hear, you hate that.
What?
You hate that.
Well, I just hear that and I think like, that's a choice at 40 million. Like, there's almost no way the economics of that business are like, you are operating it excellently all the way down to, no,
you just don't know if there's any profitable acquisition potential at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think at 40 million, you almost for sure have some amount of returning customer revenue.
Yeah, but that's just going to whittle down to nothing eventually.
I don't know. It depends. If it's an apparel business returning customer revenue, often, if you can operate the business well, like, will be shockingly sticky over time if you can keep producing
shockingly sticky?
Yes, I mean, those cohorts last for longer than people think.
Yeah, they last in tiny percentages.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that in larger percentages than people think. You'll see brands that produce larger returning customer percentages over a longer period of time than many people think, particularly in apparel. In my
what are you actually talking about?
Let's say they do an 80% increase in customer value in a year. A lot of those will end up doing 60 and 50 and some of that for the next couple of years, and sometimes they'll even stay closer to that 80 for longer. Like, they just won't degrade as fast.
There's no way.
Yeah, you don't think so?
No,
I think
there's no way in the second or third year you're going to match, because you're just dealing with a perpetually smaller number of people.
Yeah.
So unless you are somehow extracting more and more value out of them,
which apparel businesses do, because a lot of them, some of them do, because what a lot of them do over time is they release products more often and they have sales more often. Like, they become more of, as I think you've described it, a rhythm and timing business over time. So they get better at doing those things. Now, I'm not saying that it'll last forever, but I'm saying some of those will be better than you think. And if you can keep piling those up at some level, you end up having a pretty profitable business.
But keep piling it up part is the point.
In that example, though, why not go to 30 million?
Because you don't know that you can actually sustain the customer acquisition at $30 million to make it work.
Yeah, my summary statement is, I think it's very possible to build a pretty good $20 million business in e-commerce right now, and that's not satisfying to a lot of people, and that's, I think, the difference between my position and a lot of people.
So let's just play it out. $20 million, what kind of EBITDA? You want to give it 15%? You think you could double the median?
10 to 20, depending on how you run it. 20 would be a really, really big, if you're running it super profitably.
Let's call it 15%. Yeah. Okay, so 15% on 20 million is like $3 million bucks. Yeah. Okay, so assuming you have some carrying cost of the inventory, some level of debt, some partnership, how much free cash flow do you think you could spit off in a $3 million EBITDA business?
I don't know.
20% of it?
Yeah. Sure. That seems fair. You may be able to do a little bit better than that. If you're growing, if assuming that you're taking it and not trying to grow that fast along the way, you're getting there and not trying to,
So
you didn't go 0 to 5 to 10 to 20. Like
$600,000 pre-tax.
Yeah.
Okay. Assuming you have no partners, if you own 100% of the business, is a post-tax earning of $300,000.
Yeah.
You make more than that running a tiny service agency.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You take home more in a service business that is, how many people now? 4, 5?
Yeah, 3 in the three
you have 3 people that's not doing $20 million in revenue.
No.
And your take-home cash is going to be better than this theoretical $20 million business running at 15% margin, which is a 75th percentile outcome.
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah, but the enterprise value of that business is way higher than mine.
Is it?
Yes, for sure.
What is it?
For sure.
Who is buying? Give me the outcomes of those.
$3 million EBITDA. Yeah, I mean, I think you're selling that for 5x EBITDA. Seems reasonable to me.
Who's buying? Give me an example of that transaction.
Bill D'Alessandro just happened. They were bigger than that.
I don't know.
They're definitely bigger than that, but it's within the range of that transaction. Now, I think this is another question that I think is fair, which is like, what is the M&A market actually like right now for e-commerce businesses?
Right, and there's so much.
And that's also changing all the time, I think. That feels like more than we can explore here. But like, I think that's another possible reason that people would say that's right. Not a good business, but yeah.
So the other thing I thought that was interesting that Maytab said is that basically, like, when he underwrites an investment into eCom, he does not consider the liquidation event at all in the calculus of value.
Because
basically the market doesn't exist. Right, and like any assumption that you're going to go out and realize this great transaction.
That I think is another mistake people make.
Exactly. So he looks at it in its capacity to do two things. One is like to distribute cash along the way. And then two is like, can he get out in secondary? Is there a path to a second round where he could take secondary off of the next investment? Basically, the greater fool theory is what that sounds like to me. So, like, ooh, that's a cool one. Johnny Level. Don't know who that is, but that's a Sparkle out of 299 auto.
Great.
Never heard of him, he says. He just dismisses the poor guy.
Eduardo Quintero first, maybe he's a dude. This might be a dude. I don't remember. Dodger guy.
So I don't know. I think about like that to me when I look at those different businesses and I go like, and I think what you just did is what a lot of people do, which is they go, oh, the asset value, oh, the asset value, the asset value, the asset value.
It's not nothing at $3 million. And I mean,
it's only as real as your ability to realize it.
The cash, yeah.
And so like I think about that with Kalo, right? Like it's the TED saying this is worth $100 million or $1 billion, and you just go like, okay, that's only true in the event that there is a pathway to you realizing that value, and there wasn't. In fact, you misread the competitive dynamics so bad that like the present value of the cash you were being offered was so astronomically in your favor that you missed it.
Right.
So tell me about the business you're launching, the e-commerce brand that you're getting ready to launch.
I mean, part of it is, part of the thing I'm thinking about with it is that I should have brought the sample. I almost brought you some. Can you smell me right now?
Yeah, it's nice.
Little?
Yeah.
Just a little. Let's see, when did I put it on? 8 o'clock? Well, I mean, part of the deal here is I'm not expecting this to be a monster business. So that should just be set up front.
You're doing it for fun.
Partly. I'm partly interested in doing it. It also creates potentially good content. I think it can generate some revenue.
Marketing for your agency? So e-commerce has marketing for your agency?
And also, like, there's potentially the ability to, I mean, this is another thing you didn't say in all that talk about the e-commerce brand we just discussed. It has $3 million in the bottom line is like the salary you can pay yourself as part of that and some of those things.
Probably nothing. You have to keep OpEx at like 4% to get to that even.
Well, so I'm going to come back to this later. This is a point that I think doesn't fit with your theory. But anyway, okay, so it's a solid cologne business. Okay, and it's a solid cologne business today. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what it would be forever.
He doesn't mean solid as in good. He means literally.
The product is literally, instead of a spray cologne, it is like, for lack of a better word, it's a goop. You know, and so it's there's a couple brands out there who make these kinds of products now. So far as I can tell, the one that's selling the most of it is probably Fulton and Rourke, and so they sell solid cologne. Although I think their main product is spray cologne. Cologne's a $2.2 billion business in the US. I think it's a fairly bad e-commerce business in some ways, particularly because shipping glass bottles of liquid is heavy and difficult. But it's really high margin, famously high margin, solid cologne, or cologne in general. Solid cologne creates a potential opportunity to solve some of those shipping dynamics. And then there's also, I think, some things around clean ingredients that could really make a difference. So it would be all clean ingredients. The business is called Resolute. And it will be all clean ingredients that is like a solid cologne, and you apply a little right here and right here, just like you would with a spray cologne. You spray it on. There's some things I like about it as a category. I'm not like a cologne junkie. That's not how this came about. The big thing is a long time ago, Keith Knapp showed me something he had played with, and Keith had thought about starting this business a while back, and I just noticed that there's a couple dynamics of it for e-commerce that I think make a lot of sense. Extremely high margin. For example, is one of them. You can charge a high price for cologne and ship it very cheap. And particularly that shipping component of it's a really big deal because if you can ship, if the solid cologne comes in a thing that's like, a half-ounce container or something like that, even with like really drummed up packaging, which I think is a really important part of cologne businesses, is branding and packaging and those things, you can ship it for very cheap and charge a pretty decent AOV. So you end up with the cost of shipping against the revenue is pretty low. And so you end up with a high margin product. I think it'll have some LTV, not great LTV. I think it'll be but it won't be nothing. It's consumable. We'll see. We'll see. I really don't know for sure. I just don't expect that to be a huge element of it. But my hope here is I love subcategories within larger categories.
Yep.
So silicone wedding ring is the example of this that I think of all the time, right? Wedding rings are a really large business in the US. Silicone wedding ring is a way to come into that category with something that's distinct and at the same, and kind of draft off of it and maybe make a play to make a bigger business. If everything goes really right, the like 90th percentile outcome here, 95th percentile outcome is that you're able to actually move towards like a few things that are happening culturally around a mix of things, some ideas around masculinity that are happening in culture, as well as some ideas around clean ingredients that I think have pervaded women's products but haven't made it all the way to men's products in the same way.
Yep.
And there's some of those things that I think, if this is, again, 95th percentile outcome, right, then you're able to actually ride on the back of that as people sort of have a real category allegiance or really look for clean ingredients, whatever it is. That the solid cologne would be a different mechanism for doing that. I like it as a mechanism for applying cologne more than I like spray for a few reasons. You talked about one time your spray bottle
spilling all over my
spilling all over your dock
toothbrush.
Your breath probably smelled awesome afterwards.
Right? It was gross. And I'm going to die, you told me, from using it.
Well, I'm not going to make any claim like that here on a recorded piece of content, but it's very likely.
They have 100 ads running. That's like that's a real business. They're clear money.
No, that's a good business. I know I've seen them, but I think a lot of it is not solid cologne. I think a lot of spray cologne. And this is why I say solid cologne today. It's what we're going to launch with. I'm not like married to the idea that we'll never launch a spray cologne. We're not like, we'll
so you'll be back killing me. You're going to be in on that. Or
no.
Make your chemicals not kill me.
Yeah, so you'd have to launch a clean spray cologne. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't change that because I actually think that's probably hurting people. So, fragrance is like alcohol brands where if you use the word fragrance, you can basically put all kinds of stuff in it without having to declare it to people. Just like if you look on the back of a tequila bottle, it doesn't say what the ingredients are, right? Fragrance is the same way. You put the word fragrance on a label, and there's certainly regulation around it, but like you can't, but you don't have to disclose what it is. It's a trade secret.
Interesting.
So I think it's possible. I also think another part of this is a relatively low risk to launch. And what I mean is, we can do this whole thing between me and my business partner, your friend of mine, Greg and here. Launch this whole thing for something like 30 grand or something like that, and kind of get it off the ground and see what happens and see if it hits. I think the ads make themselves. I like that it's visually interesting. I think you could do some stuff on the ad level to say like, this is cologne like you've never seen before, which I think is good. Another example of like a small subcategory within a larger category that I like is I just had Isaac Mertens on from Flux Footwear. Wide toe box athletic shoe is subcategory within a larger category. That's a big category. So anyway. This is not putting my life savings on this. I'm actually not, this about me, I'm actually not very risky. Like I'm not the kind of classic entrepreneur chasing down some crazy outcome who's going to throw everything in there. I'm planning on running it profitably, basically from the beginning. I'm not trying to get it to 100 million, those kinds of things. So that's the case. So tell me why it's bad business.
Because you have a better one.
And
then you're neglected.
That's a decent. That's
the sad
answer.
That's the only thing I care about. I think what you'll do is you'll be moderately successful doing that. You just went right through the auto and you just ignored it.
I'm gonna get there.
That's Prince Fielder's son.
Yeah, but he's not any good.
He's not?
I don't think so.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
So my thing with you is more just I have repeatedly tried to tell you to
go grow my business.
Yeah, you have a really good business that's going to pay you lots of money that you could make very large and valuable.
Well, maybe I'm working on that too.
Yeah, I think you will. I think you are.
Yeah. So take a couple bets.
Well, so I think there's an opportunity cost to it, and I think that that's my contention more than. I like one of your businesses better than the other business.
Yeah. Here you go. Here's your option.
So that's my contention.
Yeah.
I think knowing that category, I think that you're going to end up selling more expensive spray.
I think that's very possible.
And I think that category is a good category.
It's funny because I don't see a lot of D2C.
That's really good.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of D2C cologne businesses or like perfume, and it makes sense as a category to me because of the value to weight ratio, because of the margin profile. It's got some similar skincare kind of components of it. It's not quite as high LTV as that. So there's some things I like about it that are there that I think could be really interesting. And I think what I'm going to find out here is do my ads hit right away? And if they do, then they're there. A big part of this is the ability to just have a very high margin product. We're going to be able to launch with Probably landed margin, if we get more than 70, I'll be really happy, just because when you're ordering at lower MOQs, it's really hard to launch with there. But like, I've already got like sheets from manufacturers, both at the level of packaging, which is twice the cost of the product, right? Packaging and product, I've got sheets that are like, hey, look, if you can get this from a 1,000 piece order to a 3,000 piece order, we're going to shave $1.50 off every one. You know what I mean? It's like you reduce cost very fast there, and if we can, obviously really hard to negotiate up front. But if we can launch with like 70 points of landed margin, then you just don't have to live at that high of a ROAS on Meta to make some money, and that's a big part of it. And then of course, core to this to me also is a lot of what I think about the place of OpEx right now in the world. Like we're basically planning on hiring the entire team in the Philippines, where I've very good contacts. I think this is a real advantage of mine, and in terms of that. And
but you're playing an OpEx game that is not real, which is you are a very expensive employee that you're not paying.
That's true. That's
you and Greg both.
That's definitely true.
So this is another thing that people look at the OpEx and I go, yeah, if you were paying yourself $30,000 a month, the OpEx would look very different.
Yeah. That's true. I think that's definitely true. And I think that's an advantage I uniquely have in this case.
What do you mean? It just means that you're not paying yourself through the business. It's not real.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see if I can.
You would have to get an add back to EBITDA for anybody acquiring that business for you.
Yes, if we get it to many millions of dollars and sell it, and we have to add back the EBITDA, I won't be too upset about that. I don't think.
Yeah. I'm just saying the lean OpEx thing, when you're a very expensive person, is not real.
Well, there is no OpEx that's lean less than $1 million in revenue, right? I mean, that's the thing. It is still an entrepreneur thing. You know, like it's not going to look good at $1 million. No. It's not going to. No. It's just, I understand that. So
that's why you like to talk about this slow growth thing, though.
Yeah.
But for you in particular, based on your costs as an individual, you can't grow slow. Because you will be way too much of the OpEx for too long.
Yeah, that's possible.
Just think about like how just your earning value alone at $5 million, okay, still represents a percentage of the EBITDA that's higher than you would want the entire OpEx to be.
It depends on how much time I'm putting into it too, and that's another question, I think.
Yeah, but it's still like you can't hand the business to somebody and be like, the applied value here is 50% of somebody's time.
I think that's reasonable that I will end up being expensive. So maybe it has to get to a certain level of revenue for it to make any sense.
Which I think is why you have to think about like the input on return that you're after is like you as a high expensive thing being plugged into something has to generate value.
Yeah.
In excess of its cost. And your cost is high. Yeah. It should be.
Yeah.
So I think that's the piece where it's like, if you don't think you could get that to 10 million in 24 months.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. I think that's not crazy. And I also think, one of the things that people also underrate with the cash flow conversation is like, if you run at an extremely high margin, then the holding costs issue and some of the cash flow dynamics change quite a bit, right? Like, so the better margin you have, the easier it is to grow faster for obvious reasons.
Well, it depends on the efficiency of your acquisition.
That's true too.
But you're going to use that margin to be aggressive on the acquisition.
We'll see. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible we would do that. Yeah, it's possible. Justinson Garcia, do you know him?
Sure don't. Is he good?
He is a masher for the Red Sox.
See,
but he has
these guys.
He has one of the greatest nicknames in baseball history.
What is it?
So his name is Josh Dinkson. So it's JHOSTYNXON.
Yep.
JHOSTYNX. His nickname is the Password.
Oh, that's clever.
Pretty good nickname, right?
That's good. See, good insight right there.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to a non-e-commerce topic.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Let's give the people really what they came for.
Yeah.
Our takes on children's schooling.
Okay. Should we do this now or do we do it at the end?
I don't care.
Do you want to ask me anything else about my business? Should you want to interrogate it anymore? Just forget the OpEx thing for a second. Do you think it's a bad idea? Do you think it's not going to work?
I just think it's a side quest fun thing that you like doing.
I do like doing that. But imagine I was going all in on it. Forget that.
I would beg you to not.
Okay, but let's think about it this way. I came to you and said, I'm a CTC client. You're my strategist.
Yeah.
Right? When you just hear about that business right away, tell me what you would do with it.
I think you're going to be grinding out acquisition at a 1.3, and you're going to have 30% LTV, and
30% is probably feels fair. Yeah.
And you're going to be just really trying to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. So you just hate it. All right. Great. You don't have to be my strategist. I'm now firing you as my strategist anyway.
I've been a strategist in that category.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. I think it's now. I would just be begging you to make more expensive perfume cologne.
Yeah.
And to create a sample kit.
That's actually so I've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
Which is, and I wonder if anybody has thought like, dude, just launch this business already. So we decided specifically not to launch without the sample kit. So I saw today, like there's a sampling packaging set being sent to my house. Like I literally just saw it today. So from a manufacturer.
That's cool.
So
that helps.
So yeah, I think it's a really
smell, right?
Really big. No, of course, yeah. So you have to be able to create that as an entry point. There's sort of a 3-step thing here that I think is also interesting, which is like you buy the sample kit. Round 2 is you buy like the main packaging, and then you buy refill packs for the packaging because the packaging. I wish I had it.
What's that? There's that deodorant brand Wild that does the refillable deodorant.
They're
really big now. I saw a huge display in Target.
Good. Sounds like a good.
But like I think there's this other part of this, which is like you brushed over quickly, which is like you have this like this thing about masculinity that it's like a message you want to get out into the world. So you're kind of preaching to like you have it's a medium for a message.
It's like a mix of things I care about, but also things that I think are culturally in the water. Yeah, and I think they're both
which I think always informs a lot of what you do. Even when you were talking to me about your business earlier. Like
it's very valued.
I find that you really want to wrap a meaning into the thing for you to feel committed to it.
Definitely.
And so I think
I make enough money. I just don't feel like I need any more money.
Right. So I think our evaluation, when you ask me what I think of it, I think our evaluation criteria are fundamentally mismatched from the root.
Yeah.
In that sense, that like the Philippines thing is an example.
Yeah.
That you talked about with your other business. Yeah. That feels important to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, as an investor, I would be like, I don't want that in the pot.
Well, so that is, I mean, the Philippines thing, I really think, I just sent a newsletter about this last week, I think is a huge advantage that I have, which is like, and part of it is because I have connection.
But would you care about changing it to Vietnam? And I think you would, because you care about the people uniquely now.
Well, sort of. I mean, I think I would be open to doing it in Vietnam as well, but part of the thing is that specifically the groups of people that I am working with there, I think are uniquely excellent and talented. And so like because of that, and also like care about the way that they are treating the people in their business in a way that feels ethical to me, particularly with offshoring, where there's like, it could get pretty shady and unethical really fast, I think. So that's a big part of it to me. So it's not just the component that I care about people that I do. It's also that I think I have connections to people who fit very well. I guess what I mean is they are providing a bunch of value back to me. It's not just me being like, I am so helpful to you or whatever. It's like, I actually think they do a great job staffing my business. Like my design and video editing team is good. And like, that's part of it. And I don't know if that would be true if I was just hiring through some giant conglomerate offshoring staffing agency. It might, I don't know, but like, and because I've built relationships there, there's just like a business partnership thing here where I have connection to the most important executives who are moving the needle in the business, and that's good for me. That's like the more I have the ear of the most important people in the company, the better it is for me. So anyway, so there's a few unique advantages there that I do think sets me up for unique success there. So yeah.
It's more that in the event that it didn't, what would be the like requirement to persist? Because of the other parts
my
of it.
mentality is Philippines first, and that is a business decision as much as anything else right now. And I think if they delivered poorly on the work, I mean, I just did this. Like I looked at some resumes for a position that I was trying to hire. It wasn't quite what I wanted, and so I went over and did it back in the U.S. Because like if it's not good enough, it's just not good enough. Like that is the reality. In fact, one of the things I believe about work in general is that you generate value, and that generates value back for you. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if only one side is generating the value, the relationship doesn't work. And so it's not charity. Like that's what I mean. If I want to do charity, I do that separately. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. So I don't have any other holes to poke in.
Raising kids.
Yeah, raising kids.
Go ahead. What is your school thing? Tell me about this.
Well, so I'm at this like position. Gosh, I don't know who's going to listen to this.
Wait, I have one more question.
Okay,
Hold on. I have one more question.
Yeah.
You are extremely AI optimistic, like in the sense of like I mean, you can restate your position however you want, but like you believe that AI is taking over everything and maybe eliminating the humans from the work.
Yeah.
Okay. So restate that however you want. But here's my question about it. Okay. To whom does that accrue value in the e-commerce ecosystem?
To whom does it accrue value in the e-commerce ecosystem?
Because it's
probably Meta.
Okay, but only Meta can only theoretically, can mostly accrue that value if it's providing at least some people some value back. But I agree with you.
I just think, I think they will disproportionately continue to benefit.
Of course. And I think that's true. And I think that's also good for the system.
Then probably Shopify. Then it's all the people in the middle taking the money out that are accruing the value.
But what about agencies?
I don't know if it's existential to agencies or not, in that like I don't know what an agency is.
Yeah, sure.
At the end of this. We're even like having a really hard time trying to distinguish ourselves from a software provider at this moment in time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think these things kind of converge into thing, which is this idea of an agent. And if you think about it, an agent is a software service provider. Right? Like that's what it is. And so I think there's this real question about where that all lives. I think the question of who is the agent provider, what I anticipate happening is that like, I just think that the agents become best built by Meta and Shopify and people with the most resources and the most money and the most data. And like, so the value just continues to accrue to the people who develop the best technology in the process as the technology becomes more valuable.
But they have to just, I mean, unless Meta starts the brands and Shopify starts the brands also, like at some point a brand has to make money from this, right? And like, because one way of framing this is another point of mine on the broader discussion earlier, is that like, it's now going to drive OpEx even lower, and it's also going to, and with Meta's ability to generate, between the incrementality stuff that they're clearly pushing on, and the ability to do more things with AI for you faster, theoretically, drive your CAC down or drive your volume up, one of the two, right? And that, another way of framing both of those is that a brand could theoretically have a lower OpEx as a percentage of their revenue and either more scale or a lower CAC as a percentage of their revenue. And therefore, one way of thinking about all the things that are happening right now is that they are accruing value down to the brand, and that the brand is the one who's actually going to benefit from this. And it's the middle part of like, I think like there's certain, like, here's an obvious loser that doesn't touch either of our businesses, so we can talk about it really freely, okay? Like there's a tier of service providers, of software providers, I mean, that are going to get wiped out from this because they must charge a lot of money. It's a little bit like the Yapo conversation you had, where it's like there's only so many people who are buying from you, and you have to be able to keep making each of them more valuable. Except all of the forces right now are pushing to make the costs go down so much, And so that tier of software companies are the most existentially threatened right now, right? You know, I started working with a tool called AdNova. I'm happy to shout them out because they do a great job. I'm not paid by them or anything like that, but just started to use them. And there's just like 6 software companies that we use right now that they are pretty close to replacing all in one tool, you know? And I just think like, now, they're not doing the "we promise we're going to make all your ads at the click of a button" thing. In fact, they've resisted over-promising, which I really appreciate. But they're saying, "Here's our product roadmap. Here's what's being, you know, whatever." And I look at that and just go, that actually is a real value add to brands to be able to run more profitably in this whole thing. And I think it's very hard to be very AI forward or to be AI optimistic or whatever it is, and sort of meta optimistic on their ability to leverage those tools and not think that accrues some value to brands.
Well, what do you mean? It's happened I think over the last 5 years, Meta has accrued more value while brands have accrued less. So I actually think what happens is that Meta...
Is that true? Have brands actually accrued less value over that time? Do you know?
I mean, if you took the market value of the D2C industry versus the market value of Meta, which stock are you buying?
Yeah, right. Like, you just judged on the level of,
So, like, I think that what happens is that Meta has so many, it's like, they're like a giant index fund of advertisers. And this is one of the things that, like, what happens, interestingly, in Meta is that when people, like, talk about our industry going back and it affecting Meta's earnings, it actually has almost no effect. Because you have to think about every advertiser in the world uses Meta. So in reality, the Meta ad revenue is an index of the entire world.
Yes, yeah.
And so when one industry bad, one good. When travel and hospitality shut down, the outdoor industry exploded. And like, so it's like a giant hedge against every industry, because every advertising business in the world uses the platform. Right? So it doesn't have any need to make our industry better. So that's where, like, when CPMs, this idea that, like, somehow we're gonna, what'll happen is, like, if there's a perfect machine, let's say there's the perfect optimization. The reality is, like, for every product, there's some total potential profit in the current market dynamic. And let's say Meta could optimize to that perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like that volume isn't infinity.
Yeah.
It's fixed, and in fact, it gets competed down, I think. And so the idea that like even if an agency or a media buyer or the Meta system could perfectly optimize to the available volume for you, it's not infinity.
Yeah.
And so eventually it just gets deteriorated unless you introduce something novel to the system.
Yeah.
A new product, a new ad, a new something. Like everything has this like very finite amount of value.
I'm coming back to this thing, but so I think I know your answer, but what should brands do then? Besides sell their business and leave. Right?
Well, so I think that this goes back to where do you have a unique value proposition that the market would persistently pay for?
Yeah.
And that can happen in lots of ways. It can happen in the form of innovation. It can happen in the form of like medical discovery. Like why is Hims and Hers creating it an advantage? Well, they're building direct telehealth relationships with people, and then they're on the forefront of innovation. They're introducing GLP-1s to a direct relationship with the customer very fast.
Yeah.
That's like has a lot. So, but that'll fade, and they'll have to introduce the next thing, whatever the next drug is, the next thing. But they're owning this direct relationship to people to distribute it through.
What about? I mean, sometimes forget Hims for a second, like the super extreme outlier versions of it. Like again,
I'll give you another example.
Thinking of like a sort of a mid-8-figure e-commerce.
Let's use Heart and Soil as an example of why I think they're such a good business is because they've monopolized the supply chain. So there's actually this real limitation to access to beef organs.
Yeah.
There's lots of beef farms, but very few that actually go through the process of dry freezing organs. And so because they got really big, they now own the direct relationship with all of the suppliers.
Yeah.
So you as an entrant can't come in, go to their supplier and say, don't make it for them, make it for us.
This is the consolidation of sunglasses problem, right?
Exactly. This is why Luxottica does this.
Yeah, right.
Is because they control the supply everywhere. Yeah. And so they can control the price.
Yeah.
That's the only way to maintain the pricing power. And because otherwise what happens is all these categories get competed down to nothing because the supply side gets out of control. And so the demand gets dispersed across such a broad supply and the price just goes all the way down. And so, but for Heart and Soil, I look at that and go, ooh, they have an advantage that will allow them to hold pricing as so much that the demand in the market remains the same, constant, or even grows. They will continue to grow and capture disproportionate share and hold margin because they don't deal with this influx of massive competitors. Now, there's a different reason that's sort of collapsing on itself, which is that there's sort of this like infighting, but that's like sort of a different thing. But so that's another example. Patents are a way to do that too. You can protect the distribution of the product and hold pricing in some way.
Okay, but still a hard example to mimic exactly. I mean, I think what you're saying is helpful, which is like be sincerely super innovative.
Audience access.
Or something like that.
Like, you were making fun of somebody the other day. You're like, oh, what's your advice? Be famous? Like you were talking to Bill. But in reality, the answer is sort of yes. Like that is an advantage that gives you massive leverage on your competition.
The only thing I'll say is as it did for them, it takes like 10 years to do it, right? So like,
well, think about what you're doing for your business. In a micro scale, you're doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing, which is that our moderate level of internet fame drives our current level of business value. And if we were to get more famous, we could capture more value.
That's
right? And so there's this game of doing both of those as a leverage point.
That's like 8 years of recording podcasts
That's right.
for me.
Exactly.
And
tweeting.
Right. So, so I do think that's a good strategy. It's just people just need to be. I mean, I'm very pro that strategy. I just think people need to be realistic about what it is and it isn't.
Well, and the horizon for it. But all of these things.
This is another thing in all this calculation. I think some people, when they say that it's hard, what they mean is I didn't get extremely rich very fast. I'm like, well, like what? And I really think some people mean that. I think that's what is happening for some of them. They're like,
oh, I don't disagree. But that is the obstacle is the way, which means it's not easy. It's hard.
Yes.
And so that goes back to what is the industry? It's a very hard industry, and people who work very hard win in it, but you can't not work very hard. So like, if that's the standard, then that's fine, but let's not call it easy. You know. So I think that's part of it.
Okay. We did all this stuff. We did this for a long time. That's okay. I don't even know how much time we have. Should we do some like?
Well, let's go to some random ones.
Go to the random ones. Okay, schooling. So you said you're.
This actually probably maybe it's too deep. I've got to decide where my kids are going to school, and I love your question. But they're in 5th grade. They'll be in one more year of elementary school, then they go to middle school.
Okay. How have you decided it so far?
1, the local public school. That was our first choice. 2 was along the way. There's this school down the street that's like a lottery.
My kids, by the way, are 3 and 5. We're going through the same things. One of them is like just going to go into kindergarten, 1st grade, and he's a smart dude. Like we're trying to figure out what to do with him. Not trying to be a braggy parent or whatever. You're just trying to parent your kid as well as you can. Where's he going to thrive?
That's right. And and then there's a school that's a magnet school. That's a public magnet school, but it's lottery entrant only. And so we had been applying to the lottery every year. one of our kids got in, so we got to run this sort of like A/B test where we sent one of them to one school, one to the other school.
One of your twins?
Yeah.
Okay.
So split the twins up for a year. One of them went to that school, and now all 3 kids go to that school.
To the lottery school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it the right decision? I don't know. Yeah. It's really interesting, the dynamics of what play out in both cases.
Yeah.
The question that you asked of what's the point of school is like a really interesting one. There are social considerations, there are educational considerations.
Can I unpack that a little?
Yeah.
This was a really helpful point that somebody brought up to me. It was somebody was debating. It was in the Christian world that I'm in, and like somebody was debating sort of like homeschool versus public school. Yeah. And it was relevant really to anybody who's Christian or not, right? But like, so one person talks about why she's for public school or whatever, and the other guy comes on with homeschool, or maybe it's a classical school might have been, you know, and he's like, well, the question you have to ask is what's the point of school? And when he asked that, I thought, I've never thought about that in my whole life. And it was a really helpful question for me. His answer to the question, I'll tell you, is the development of virtue. He thinks school is, he thinks the main point of school, like with anything with raising your kids, is to develop people of virtue as they grow. And I think he would define virtue wisely. There would be, or widely. It wouldn't just be like being nice. He would mean it in terms of like pursuing excellence in various pursuits and like. Yeah. You know, your impact on the world and various, you know, it would way beyond just like, again, like a sort of general kind of, although I think the development of your character would be part of that too. That was his answer.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if you had time to think about that answer.
Yeah, well, so during COVID, I went down this rabbit hole pretty far, and there was this school that was sort of launching that was sort of trying to rebuild education through first principles. And their idea that I've always found somewhat intriguing is that your job is to make them thriving and contributing members of society 18 years from now. Or like when they get to 18.
Yeah.
So it's actually a vision towards equipping them for
being an adult.
It's the EOS vision of, right? What's your 10-year vision and how do you backtrack from there? Right?
That's right. And so we should educate through that lens, which I think about that a lot. Like someday they're going to leave. They're going to be outside my sphere of responsibility, and I would like for their life to go well.
Yes, right.
Which means that they can earn a living, that they have friends, that they can pursue a partnership in a family someday, and that would be good.
Yes.
So what sets them up for that as much as possible? And I find myself in that context having a hardest time with the value coming to education.
Yeah.
In part because I find evaluating education is very difficult for me to do. Like, is this good? Is this math class good or bad? Is an incredibly difficult thing for me to wrap my head around. And it's so standardized in many cases that the distinction between, then I get into like sort of evaluating teachers, and it's like, well, I have so little access to that question. It becomes this thing of like, how was your experience with Mrs. X? You know, and you're dealing with this like very limited anecdotal sample size of a kid that's not your kid, that learned in some way. And so it's, man, I find it to be very hard, is my point. And so I tend to go closer to the social things that I feel I have more visibility into than even the classroom side. And I just use the sort of like baseline progression of their state testing as like this indicator of progression relative to their peer set. So I don't know.
How are they doing?
They're doing really well. And I think that's where I feel this like, I'm like, okay, hold constant. The thing relative to where they're at. The middle school, what's challenging about middle school is that this school, because it's a lottery school, like all the kids distribute from here. It's not like an obvious you go to this school next. Because if you go to this school, you're allowed to choose to go to any middle school in the city. And so there's this like constant conversation now about we're going to Ensign, we're going to Mesa, we're going to this school, we're going to that school, we're going to Olu, whatever. And so the kids really fragment from here. And so now all of a sudden it's not a choice of 1 or 2, it's a choice of 1 of 5. And so it becomes overwhelming amount of information.
I mean, the question like, where will my kid thrive in school? Is like, we've tried to wrestle this out. You know, we've looked at like public school for our older boy. Like, we have looked at keeping him in a Montessori setting where you can go sort of past preschool, kindergarten. Actually, the Montessori preschool he goes to now, my wife's mom was like a lifelong Montessori preschool teacher. So that was not even a decision for us. It was just like, that's just what her family does, which is great, like Montessori, so it's fine. By the way, there's pretty good data to say that like if there is a decision that you ought to really kill yourself over for educational outcomes, it's actually preschool. It's the youth, right. Like basically the development is so, you know, there's I know some old Freakonomics episodes about that. But anyway, so we felt good about Montessori and that was fine. And then in his experience, it's been great.
That's what my kids did too. My wife was a Montessori teacher at the time.
That's right. Yeah. And in fact, we first took them to one school that was not good, and then we went over there. But yeah. Anyway, then it was like there's actually a Montessori elementary school connected to our Montessori preschool. Yeah. So it's like 20 kids. 15 kids, whatever, from first grade to sixth grade.
Is it bilingual?
In one classroom. It's not. We would like that. My wife speaks Spanish. Yep. And mostly speaks Spanish to the boys. But that is a drawback. So we definitely would have otherwise loved. There is a local public school that is a dual immersion bilingual elementary. So that would be really nice. But yeah, that it's like, so, and then we're also evaluated at a classical school. It's like a mix of classical and homeschool, like combo, you know. Yep. We aren't like big homeschool people, but it was just like, maybe this is what's right for this boy. So I agree with you. It's a decision that feels like almost impossible, especially when you layer back to, one of my clients has done a bunch of research about this and has sent his kid to all kinds of different schools. Yeah. Like, you know, he just says, like, when you sort of look at how we landed on the way we do education, it's a mix of like nobody ever like thought about it really. Like essentially it wasn't particularly well considered to a particular goal that you would care about now, first of all, or secondly, the goal that it was created to was like, hey, it's like, put your pencils down, the bell rung, because you got to get ready to work in a factory, and that's what life is like. You know, like essentially it's like a post-industrial revolution artifact, and that's the way we do classrooms, the way we do them, instead of like letting kids go like learn the things they want to learn or direct certain ways. Now I haven't read the book, I haven't evaluated that claim, right? I'm not saying that's what the case is, but I agree with you. And so I've actually felt a little freer on this in that I think Emily Oster's comments about this, who's very helpful on these sorts of things. She's an economist who does a lot of stuff around parenting, but she's like worked through all the papers and brings them to a public level. One of her things is like almost every one of these decisions that you make doesn't have very good data to say that it works. Yeah. It's essentially like she means that as a freeing thing. Like, I get probably try to be a good parent and help your kids. And, and those kids
present in the current consequences and make adjustments if you need to. I think.
What do you think the point of school is? You said social?
Well, no, so I think about it as going back to like setting them up for adulthood, equipping them for the skills of engaging the world functionally.
Which are what?
So I think about hard work. Yeah. I think about the ability to develop friendships as having a massive
impact,
network effect on your life.
Doing this if
it creates a floor to your life that I think is job opportunities.
And people might not know we became friends in 7th grade.
That's right. Yeah. And so much of my life is like that. Yeah.
Like,
So I think that's a huge piece of it. So hard work, and then I think you want like problem solving. So like hard intellectual problem solving. You want to be faced with those kinds of challenges and work through them. I heard Mark Zuckerberg actually give a really great interview about his math experience. That like when he went to Harvard, what did he learn really well? And he said that what he liked about the challenge of this math teacher that he gave him was that he gave him this like wildly insane hard problem. And that like he had to cram for hours and hours to work through it and get to it. But getting to the other side of that was a realization that, I can take on a challenge and get through it. Yeah. And he's like, I don't even remember what the math was. Right. I don't know how to do it. But the lesson I thought was like, if I need to, I can solve a problem. Yeah. Like that's a really empowering feeling.
Yes, that's right.
And so I think that's a really important one. Not get addicted to drugs. I think you want to avoid massive social consequence. Yeah. Not get stabbed by somebody. Right. I think there's a avoidance piece too. But it's funny. So I was homeschooled, went to a private middle school, went to a public high school, right? Yep. So I have
all three.
These different viewpoints of all of it, and I don't even know how to reflect on my own experience. Like, I kind of liked all of them. They all offered me good things in different ways.
Right, this is where like the Thomas Sowell dictum is helpful, right? There's no solutions, only trade-offs.
That's right.
That's right. It's like, Okay.
You guys got any advice out there? I know you do. People have. Please. You want to talk about an area? People have opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's right.
Dr. GPT.
Dr. ChatGPT. Okay, I have thoughts on this too. Okay. So this is a good one for back and forth. So tell me about Dr. ChatGPT.
So I have this new
and your supplement routine.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
new
about this.
Concierge like medical practice through Hogue, which is like you have your own doctor, so I can get an appointment whenever I want. It's pretty cool. So you're paying like a monthly membership to have access to
right. So
a subset of
the concierge medicine. Yes, I've heard about this. You pay a monthly fee. It's outside the insurance system, basically, right?
You pay the monthly fee is outside the insurance, but then the care is within. So I get quarterly blood tests. And so now I have like 8 quarters of consistent blood panels. Awesome. And I give them to ChatGPT. And I recently got them
I saw somebody say recently, if you're not doing that with medical results at this point, anything that anybody gives you at the doctor, then you're being negligent.
Honestly, it's like so incredibly helpful, the communication. And it's cool because I have trends, right? So now I can see 8 quarters. Is it a
project or something? I was like,
it's a PDF. So my chart is like my hospital thing that spits out a PDF that I can upload into ChatGPT.
Yeah. But I mean, do you keep them all in one ChatGPT project, or is it just like one long chat? Or
it's one long chat. That I reference back to. Projects are I got to use those better.
I don't know. I'm not good at it.
Yeah. But and so recently I did it. I had a little bit of high cholesterol, and so looking at all of this, I was like, okay, give me both diet, health, and supplement plan relative to my things. And it gave me this whole comprehensive plan, this stack of supplements, and so I just went and immediately bought the supplements. And like I was thinking to myself, like as a discovery mechanism for shopping,
right?
Like, how did I end up with zinc supplement? Well, there was 2 things.
It wasn't through the website quiz.
No, it wasn't through the website quiz. It wasn't through a brand. It was ChatGPT using my medical results to give me a preference. And I went to Amazon and found the exact milligram dosage of the most like root level supplement that I could find. And that was it. I don't even know the brand. It's inconsequential to me. It's so commoditized in some ways. But really, this interaction and level of trust that I have with my ChatGPT doctor now has given me an entire program of consumption that I'm on a subscription basis with like 5 things. It's wild.
Do you worry at all about ChatGPT hallucinating any of that?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that's where like sharing it back with your medical professional and saying like, what do you think about this as an action plan? What I find is that the doctor tends to be more conservative in their messaging to me, meaning they're like, yeah, that's probably fine. Maybe it'll work. Like they don't have as strong of opinions about things sometimes. I think there's probably
is your doctor like a functional health doctor?
He's a GP, general physician.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that might be part of it. Is like, especially with something like supplements or whatever. It's like it's just a very different way of thinking about medicine. Than, you know.
So I don't know.
That's really
I
cool.
love it.
That's really cool.
When I think about shopping, I think about like the question of is that demand capture or demand creation? Like where does that sit? I think and how much of my future purchasing buying behavior is going to come from there. I think it's going to be
a lot. It's helpful for me to hear things like that because I still don't quite use ChatGPT that way in my life, but I'm using it a little bit more all the time. Like, here's a good example. One of my clients, Chris Kresser, who is a functional health clinician actually himself, has a supplement brand. He's been on my show. He just sent the prompt in our Slack yesterday what he does for like his meal planning, you know, and he's a functional health clinician. Like he knows how to think about this, and it's just wild. It's so smart. He's like, and I get it, and then after of course his meal prep, he's like. Then I ask it he said, here's the ages of each person, here are dietary concerns, give me some recipes, and then of course, what's the next step he puts in? Give me the shopping list.
That's right.
And so it's like that same thing. It's just
eventually it's going to be like deliver it from DoorDash, whatever,
that's right.
Like it's all, and that's where like the question of what is brand in the middle of all of that is like interesting for like which supplement did I take? I literally don't care.
Right. Like I mean, at some point, this is a good category question though, where like there are definitely supplements that are better and worse. And so you may end up with something where you have to go then research a little bit more of like, okay, but you're right. At the end of the day, you're looking for like, the brand is just a purveyor of an ingredient at that point.
That's right. And like I'm going to remove the research part. I'm probably going to give the ChatGPT too.
That's right. For sure.
Recommend the best version of XYZ.
For sure.
So I don't know. I found that and there was the big news this week about the Apple coming out and saying that they had a decrease in searches for Google for the first time in 20 years. Google stock dropped 9%. And so there's this like really interesting. We're starting to hear more conversation of ChatGPT SEO.
And it's so funny. Like when you thought about Google, this is probably how all disruption happens. The idea was like, is Bing going to be able to take away a little bit of market share? Just like a directly competitive search engine. But it's not a directly competitive search engine. It's a step in the way people interact with the world that's meaningfully different. That's what actually happens. So my thing about this that's similar, it's related more to the health side, is something I've been thinking about. So I just have not spent very aggressively on my health. Like I mean, in some ways I have. Like I have some home gym stuff and like eat clean and in that respect, relatively clean, like all those things. And I think, I have a Whoop, I immediately bought the new one immediately. But in other ways I don't. And what I mean is like, there's some stuff you can do, like Function Health is obviously a popular one of these now. Function bought Ezra, so you can do cancer scans like really fast. I'm a little behind on a couple things I need to do, but I've started to just think, and I'm just curious if you think about this way in your life and your family. Like, I sort of started thinking about my role in my family as a single point of failure problem, where like if something goes wrong with me, I'm actually the only earner in my family. Like my wife is home with the boys right now. That probably won't be forever, but my kids are young and you know. And probably just like my wife is highly justice oriented, worked in an inner city school for a long time. She's probably not going to go to a super high paying job. You know? So I've thought, like, am I being an idiot if I don't start thinking about that single point of failure problem more around a lot of sort of things? So, for example, should I be going to buy the sleep pod, 8 Sleep, whatever, because like sleep is so powerful? Should I be doing the things you're doing, the quarterly blood test, all of that stuff? Should I go to the Ezra scan, function health, basically do the whole thing, and then go to the next level, which is like buy a car that has self-driving capability, because self-driving is drastically safer than not. And so like every day when I drove 35 miles to get here today.
Were you being negligent?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then of course there's another step, which is like, also my wife is a single point of failure. And also like I don't want my boys to die. You know, so like forget the
Well, I think this is why what you're describing.
LeBron is the example I was thinking of, where like LeBron is putting millions of dollars a year into his body because it has a clear benefit to the rest of his output in the world, right?
And that's actually true for all of us.
Exactly. It's like you don't have to be LeBron for that to
I think this is why the category that I think is most interesting in consumer is health. Like I think that we're going to see, like if you were to break down like what you just described, like a percentage of your budget that goes to healthcare right now, we think of that as insurance.
Yes.
And like, but I actually think we're going to see like an astronomical increase in the amount of our money that goes in, because the potential solutions are exploding. Like, and so like the Ezra things, or the what you call the concierge medicine, like these are novel in a way that all of a sudden, Whoop, like there's all this immersion.
Whoop, do you see the new one? It'll tell you your blood pressure at a given time, and do something with your heart, like it'll tell you if you're an AFib.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Like, so you think about these things as self-driving is another great example where it's just like this is a health decision in a lot of ways. Like, and so I think that's a category that's just going to keep expanding for sure.
I think there's a question for me. Like sometimes I think, like, is this just like? Is there any point at which it just becomes almost like selfish? Like it's just like it's so much, or it becomes obsessive. And the sort of like you know, the people talk about this problem of like optimizing anything in your life. Like you just become this super ultra optimizer all the time, and it becomes over the top. Like, and I think that's the one question, is it becomes so endless. But I've started to think about it more like, is this actually a thing? Should I be taking a nootropic every day? Right. Because like my mind is how we make money.
I've thought about like,
like all of the, you know, and I don't know what the payoff is, but so you think about it the same way?
I do. And I think this category is going to explode. So if I'm very interested in it. I find it to be super compelling, interesting.
Okay, 2 super fast ones, and then we should be done. Okay, I'm gonna just this is fit into this. I love my desk treadmill. My walking pad. I did it, and here's what I'll say about it. So I'm now like I've figured out that I walk basically the same pace as I take little walks around my neighborhood. Like I'll take calls on walks and stuff like that all the time. So I walk about a 20-minute mile pace, 3 miles an hour. And when I first started doing this, I was walking too slow. It was annoying me. I've gone to the point where I'm comfortable looking like a maniac on a call.
Zoom call?
Oh, boy. Depending on who the client is and how well I know them. I've seen Sean Frank posting about rucking on it. You know,
that's so funny. I literally like keep going.
Okay, so here's the thing. When I first started doing it, first of all, I work from home, so I don't have to worry about annoying people or anything. Okay, but when I first started doing it, I couldn't type and walk at the same time. It was like annoying. You know, like I couldn't figure it out, and so I kind of stopped using it for a little bit. Plus, you have to kind of roll it out and back under your desk, the way my desk set up, whatever. But now I've gotten to a point where I'm so.
It's a GORUCK ad that I made in ChatGPT. It's a guy on a treadmill with a GORUCK on. So Sean, if that's you, I made this ad about you in ChatGPT.
That's so funny. Is it working? Has it gone?
We're in the middle of a contest right now we're all trying to make AI ads for our clients this week, and so I'm playing, and that was mine. So I just submitted it. It's not live yet.
So anyway, it took me some getting used to, but now I'm at a point where I use it a ton. I love it, and crucially, I think it really helps my work. I think I just focus better. I'm less distracted. If I'm watching a Loom video that somebody has sent me about something, something like that, like I'm able to do it while just kind of moving a little bit. I'm probably, I don't know, ADHD or something like that. So anyway, I don't know. Have you ever gone down that road?
Well, so I've thought about this because I actually.
And by the way, calorie output. Like,
so that's the biggest thing.
I know you said to me.
So I hate. Like caloric restriction is just like really not fun for me. I don't feel good fasting in the morning. I'd prefer to have breakfast if I could. But when I sit at work, it's really hard for me to get above like 2,100 calories burned in a day.
My average is easily over 3,000.
Really?
Yeah.
See it's definitely worth exploring, just because it's so miserable for me to be in caloric restriction at an extreme level like that and not eat breakfast. I get anxious. So I would prefer to be able to have a light breakfast and get my calorie burn up to 2,600 or 2,700. Yeah. So I think it's probably worth it to add.
I'd be curious to see. You're such a maniac also that I wonder if it would help you. So you got another fast one?
Let's see. Well, so fun. So you brought up AI, ChatGPT disappointment. How are you? Are you guys making ads in ChatGPT yet? How's your image?
We are making some ChatGPT ads. Yeah. We're starting to look into some other things that maybe even do it better. But like, I would say we haven't had any. Oh, actually, that's false. I have a client who's very good at AI stuff and is kind of a developer and has built a machine that is smashing by just putting in prompts to develop.
Getting to image outputs entirety that you're putting into the
So he's prompting for the image creation and then text overlays over the images. And the text usually is created in ChatGPT as well. And like 2.5x. Now, he had this sounds like the wrong credit. The thing is, he launched a new product that he was able to basically get a super low MOQ. He could test on the product side very fast and very cheap. Go from idea to product launch in like a week. Like it's just like that kind of thing. And then spun up 50 ads like this, and the product hit, and he can get more of it really fast. And so that, like, combining it with the operational efficiency he's built has made it an invaluable tool, because he can create so many ads so fast. Now, and what he did, we spent an hour on a call last week. He's like, here's the keys to the magic box. So he basically overlaid ChatGPT's thing with his ability to sort of make use of it. So he's not just going into ChatGPT and like making an image. He's like, he's built it into his other stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go make so many ads.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think that this is a public service announcement, is that I think that the number one thing that I experience when trying to do this is that brands have to relinquish the minute obsession with the details that the consumer will never notice.
Yes.
Because
I agree with this.
The trade-off here is so disproportionate in terms of speed, cost of production, relative to those details, that if you get hung up there and it prevents you from using this system, you are going to get run over by somebody. And so I think
arguing about the shovel in your gold mine.
That's right. It's just like to not put an ad live that you made for free because you're like, oh, the straps don't look exactly right. Someone is going to not care, and they're going to make 500 times as many ads as you, and it's going to be problematic. But so we're trying to, what I've found is that like there's this real forcing function where, so if you think about the sequence of selling ads inside of an agency, normally it's like you buy 10 ads from us, we go make the 10 ads, we bring them back, you approve them or not, and we're sort of pre-selling the idea of ads versus ads themselves. And so we're introducing this new initiative where everybody has to make their client 20 ads a week and show them to them with a prefix price for video and image. If they want them, great. If they don't, no problem. And so we're always bringing them things all the time. Do you want these? If yes, we'll put them in your ad account right now. If not, no worries, because the cost to us is so low that we can actually afford to do that, and it forces us to get better at it and figure out what they like and don't like, and to where you could all get this like endless purchase opportunity in front of people. And so I think we're really trying to figure that muscle out right now.
We shout out to Behind the Scenes Studio, the design and edit partner in the Philippines that I use. I'm both a client of them. They are a client of me. They advertise my podcast. I use them for our services. They are much better at this than I am. They have built it into their services in a way where it's like the moment it became possible, they're just like, okay, we got it. We're going to do creative briefs, and just hammering ads at a massive volume. So we're not doing quite the thing you're saying in terms of the 20 per client per week or whatever it is. But what we are doing is we're saying like, building into our process that, and especially like what I think it's most useful for is getting weird. That's the thing that I really like about it, right? Like where it would be very hard to pick up a camera and shoot it. So it's like some people have already showed this ad, but like the development of the posted ad being like writing on somebody's belly. Where it's like in there, right? So we call these text and context ads. The text is, instead of overlaid on the image, it's in the context of the image. Okay. But think about it. Like we skywrite. We're writing in the we're using lawnmowers to write in the grass. We're writing on the sand on the beach, but nobody has to go shoot that.
That's right.
So like, and I'm still pushing. Well, like one of them from Adapt Naturals, they have a gut health supplement, and they immediately came up with, this is so great. I just told one of the guys on my team, get weird. She was like, she came back with ads that were that were like somebody straining to poop on a toilet, which would be very hard to get footage of.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so like that I think has been useful. So we're trying to find ways to especially do that, and then to just move fast, and then at the same time also to do very straight ahead sort of product oriented stuff as well.
So what you're describing of like, there's the idea of the writing, and you can now extrapolate to all these ways. Like, so GORUCK, customer of ours, they have a campaign that's like, bring the gym with you, and it's this idea. Go hiking into beautiful places, right? So
ChatGPT, immediate answer.
Exactly. So like, imagine this is a real photo of Glacier National Park.
Yeah.
Okay, this is real photo Glacier National Park. Okay, so I'm like, all right, well, I can take all the best hiking.
No.
Well, what's that?
Oh, sorry.
Show it again. Show it again.
So this is Glacier National Park. Okay, this is Google Glacier National Park. You'll see this photo. Everybody takes a photo here. Okay, so this idea of bring the gym with you, I can immediately put anybody there in that exact location, and I can go to, give me the 50 most beautiful hiking locations in the world, and recreate the exact
You know what the
photo.
problem with that ad is, though, is that you can't see that they're wearing backpacks good enough.
Well, you get copy and other things surrounding it. I agree. Forget whether that's exactly right. Okay, another cool.
But the beauty of it, right, is that you can. I see what you're saying. The beauty of it, though, right, is
again,
that
here's another Zion. You put them there. Whatever.
You should show both of them. I don't know.
Yeah. So Zion National Park. There's the idea, right? And then you get to, boom, bring the gym with you, same exact location. Okay, or the other thing that they do.
No way that was fast enough.
Yeah, you whatever.
It doesn't matter. People get the idea.
I'll give you the actual image to show.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The other thing that their other tagline is, don't walk, ruck.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't walk, okay?
Yes,
walk.
right. Yeah, show that one.
Okay.
That one's awesome.
So like there's the little walk sign, right, that we all know, and if your tagline is don't walk,
people are going to see that, do that one, because then that's the way, that's the context that a customer would see it in.
This is literally my one verbal prompt.
Yes, right.
Okay, and then I take same thing. I find this sign, don't walk, walk. And I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't walk, ruck.
Yeah.
Don't walk, ruck.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Burn 3x the calories. Don't walk, ruck.
Yeah, right.
Right, and so you can get to, and this is just me as a designer.
Desk treadmill.
Doing this in like 6 seconds. Like I can make this ad that. There's nothing like this in the account because now will it work or not? I don't know, probably not. But who cares?
If you can take 1,000 shots,
it took 0 seconds to make it.
Right.
You know, and it's like I think that's where I just go, man, this is like. But I'll tell you, running into some issues. Love you guys at GORUCK about whether it's like perfectly on brand or not. And I get it. These guys
Protect their brand.
They're great at brand, and I understand it. But man, I think that there's just an opportunity to build on some of these really great foundational brand ideas and keep going with it. But
we should be done.
That was long, but we're
an hour and a half. So
yeah, that's the usual.
Usually are. Open up some extra ad inventory, you know.
Yeah, we'll see how much money we made on our cards.
Hyunsuk Jung, I think that's the big one.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.